Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2025 Legislative Breakfast Series, sponsored by, built by Newport, and presented by Vermont's North Country Chamber here at the lovely Eastside. Built by Newport as our sponsor today is paying for this excellent breakfast. I'd like to thank everyone for coming on these slimy roads today, and the legislators especially for showing up today with this weather. I'd like to also thank NEK-TV, the members of the media, and let you know that the next legislative breakfast will be February 10th, sponsored by Pasumsic Bank. The rules: every legislator will be introduced and get 5 minutes to speak. At the end, with time allowing, people will be allowed to ask questions. They can come up here and state their name and the town they're from, a sentence or two for groundwork, and then they can ask their question. The microphone is for picking up on the broadcast that's on YouTube and the internet, not for the room. So if you want people to hear you, you have to speak up a little bit. So the first person I'm going to introduce is Dave LaForce for Built by Newport, who is our sponsor. And we'd like to thank him very much.
Good morning, everybody. I guess I'll start by saying thank you for serving. I know it's a challenge serving in any capacity, whether it's local or state, so I know you guys get plenty of pressure and plenty of opinions in your roles, so I definitely thank you guys for doing that. I own Built by Newport with my wife Julie. We've been in business for 62 years this year, right over yonder across the lake. And our business is doing very well. I'm not going to bore you guys with our complaints because you already know what they are because you ran on them. So I won't go through all those details, but it's definitely been a challenge for us. We've grown our workforce by 45% in the last 12 months, and that was not an easy task. We're fortunate to be in a great community like this and able to have good paying jobs for our local community. I would say that we definitely had a big challenge last year. We're fortunate because the majority of our customers believe in US made. So the majority of their vendors are based in the US. So my competition is companies in other states. Last year alone, we were exposed to over $150,000 of new cost because of things that happened in Montpelier. And for a company our size, that's a huge challenge because I'm competing against other states, and other states are not seeing the increases that we're seeing as a business. So I'll leave it at that. Do I ask my question now? No. Or after? So thank you.
Thank you. And it's all right. He gets first crack at the questions, so he'll get to come up. The first person I'm going to introduce is Senator Russ Ingalls. He has been serving since 2019, and apologize for my glasses. I'm getting older like all of us here. And he serves as the chair of the Senate Committee on Agriculture and on the Senate Committee on Institutions. So welcome, Senator Ingalls.
Thank you, Dan. I thank the Chamber, NEK. Dave, thank you. Thank you for thank you for this, but thank you for what you do for the community. If anybody hasn't been down to Dave and Julie's business, they should go down there and see what's going on. I think that you're going to see pretty impressiveness. The workforce and the factories and the businesses that we have today aren't your grandfather's Buick anymore. They have to innovate. They have to do everything that they can do to survive in this economy. It's not just a Vermont economy anymore. It's a United States economy. It's a world economy. And yes, everything that we do does impact Dave. $150,000 for a small business like that is just unaffordable. That would be enough to keep another business from trying to move in here. I think the most discouraging part about this last election, which there was a lot of positiveness, and so But the most discouraging part is that the people, they understood when they got the tax bill. I mean, that was pretty easy to understand. You open that bill up and you say, wow, look at that. But that isn't what impacted Dave. It's the $500 million extra fees that they've included in just last year alone. $500 million for the rest of our lives until we do something about it. And we don't have majority now, but there is a vastly different feeling down in Montpelier. Everybody wants to get along, to play along. When you lose the most seats in the country, as a party, you should kind of get that message that people are paying attention, and this is why we do these events as well. I know that we see a lot of the same faces, a few different faces every time we come, and we always have great sponsors. It's very important that we get together and you make your voices heard. This last election, I would say that the pendulum did swing all the way, and then we had a reckoning, and now it's up to the people down there to make sure that you feel that you were listened to. I know that the message that we were having for 4 years that I was there was the same message that we ran on this last election. Public safety, affordability, and housing. And, there was a lot of times where 7 of the Republicans in the Senate and 37 in the House, they weren't listened to by the governor. They weren't listened to by the other party. But funny thing that happened, come election time this last time, it was a pretty crowded room. We didn't change anything we were talking about, and everybody come and joined us. And once we did that, wow, look at the results that we have. So government is by the people, and if you don't make your voices heard, if you do not get up there and you do not attend, and the biggest thing is vote. You got to go vote. You can say all you want, but if you don't get up there and vote, and you don't go there, and you don't think it makes a difference, this last election should show that it does. I'm very honored to be the chair of Senate Agriculture. Bobby was there for a long time. I think that a chair should understand agriculture, not just milking cows, but the whole business sense of what agriculture does for the state of Vermont. So I'm very honored to have that. Also very honored to be back in institutions. Every government building in the state of Vermont. We have a lot to say about the courthouse, the building over here, and a lot of different stuff, and a lot of other communities. Plus, we do a lot with clean water. I was able to secure $17 million of seed money last year and last biennium, and that got us $260 million worth of match. That $17 million was match money. We got $260 million of federal money to go around to do clean water projects. So these projects that you're seeing on all these lakes, the upgrades to the sewer plants, all of that stuff is something that came out of our committee. Very proud of that. Other than that, I don't want to touch upon too much about what's going on. There's a lot of speakers here today. I just can't really thank everybody enough for coming. I know it's early. I know it's all of that, but again, with what you did in November, showing up, making your voices heard, it made a real difference, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Senator Sam Douglas. He serves on the Senate Committee on Health and Welfare and the Senate Committee on IT and Institutions. So, thank you. Here's Senator.
Put my coffee there. I'm closer to it over there. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to Built by Newport for sponsoring, and thanks for coming. Before I really start in, one of the things that I want to say, I'd be kind of remiss to not point out that today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So happy to all of you, and I hope you can celebrate that well. Dr. King was a huge proponent for equality, justice, and unity, and I think his legacy is something that we as legislators need to continue building on. And I think right now, being here in this room, we are united behind our legislators and trying to make sure that we down there in Montpelier are doing everything and what's best for our area, in this case, the Northeast Kingdom. He was also a great lover of civic duty. And I think it's very fitting that we're here today honoring that civic duty and being engaged and listening to our legislators and hearing what they have to say. So I also want to thank Bobby Starr for serving so long. Big shoes to fill. I hope I'm feeling good so far. And it's always great to open up my desk and see his name scribbled in there every single day. So You have my notes here. I just want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing. It is a little bit early in the session, so far our committees have mostly just been taking testimony. Over in health and welfare, we've been hearing from Vermont Care Partners, Vermont Medical Society, and we've been getting a lot of trainings on Medicaid and Medicare. In IT and institutions, we've been taking a look at 2024's capital bill. As Senator Ingalls pointed out, that is allocating all the funds towards government buildings. Oh, and there goes my alarm. Apparently it's time to wake up. I'm not the only one.
That's to make sure I was here on time.
There you go. There you go. You're doing good, Todd. But yeah, so IT and institutions, we added on IT this year because there wasn't really a committee on jurisdiction for that. There is some raucous debate right now whether or not IT should be in institutions, but it is. So we're going to be dealing with data privacy and any other information technology issues that emerge this coming session. So another thing, on this past Thursday, the Public Utilities Commission came out with a report on the clean heat standard, and it's looking like it's going to be going up to around 58 cents per gallon of heating fuel as a surcharge, and I stand opposed to that policy. And there actually is a repeal of the Clean Heat Standard and also a bill in the House to turn the Global Warming Solutions Act's mandates into goals. What other things here that we've been going on? So in the Senate, I have a number of bills that I brought with me here. If you want to come over and take a look at them, you're welcome to. So far, my caucus in the Senate, including Senator Ingalls, we have co-sponsored S-17. That is a bill to eliminate veteran retirement income from Vermont's state income tax. So if you're a veteran and that passes, we're hopefully being able to get your retirement income and your pensions income tax free. So that's something that I'm very proud of, and I know the rest of our caucus is very proud of. In health and welfare, there are 3 bills currently on the wall. There is a bill on certificate of need. So when you're, for those not in the medical field, so when you're trying to open up a new hospital or a new medical facility, or you're trying to expand services at your current hospital or medical facility, you have to get a certificate of need if right now your facility is going to be making in excess of $1 million a year expected revenue. The bill that is currently in my committee on the wall is trying to extend that to up to $3 million. So make it more expansive, broader, make it easier to open up hospitals and medical facilities or expand services. That is a bill I am right now tentatively in support of, as it will be able to allow more businesses to open up or allow hospitals to diversify a lot easier, and it'll create competition and hopefully lead to lower prices. And that's the main argument for it. Another committee is extending Dr. Dinosaur out to 26 years of old. I am 26 years old, so Dr. Dinosaur being extended out to cover me, that is a lot of Medicaid dollars coming down from the state. As of this moment, I tentatively do not support that bill just because that's going to be a lot of money for up to 26-year-olds like me that probably do not need it. We have an affordability problem, we don't need to add to it. Another bill that is going to be on the wall, that's S1. It was the first bill introduced in the Senate, and that would extend Medicaid-level healthcare covering to all Vermonters, regardless of need or income. I definitely do not support that bill. It is going to be extremely expensive to Vermont, and I do not expect to see it leave my committee. I really think that's all I have for an update right now. We haven't really done all that much. It's mostly just been taking testimony so far and meeting everybody, having some great introductions, and I think we're doing a good job. There's a lot of appeal down there right now to work in a bipartisan manner, and I'm very happy about that, and it does seem like more people are willing to come to the table, and I think we can continue doing that. There are some who are pushing back a little bit, but I think we're going to have a really, really good year. Again, thank you all for coming. Thank you to Built by Newport, and have a nice Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Thank you, Senator Douglas, and thank you for not playing the theme from Star Wars with your alarm. So, like that. Our next speaker will be Representative Mike Marcotte. He is the chair on the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks, Dan and the Chamber, for putting these breakfasts on. Thank you, Dave and Julie, for Built by Newport for sponsoring this morning, and thank you all for joining us. As the two senators said, we're just beginning. First year of a biennium, so that means that committees need to be brought up to speed on what policy areas that they work, what jurisdictions they have. So my committee, House Commerce and Economic Development, I have 7 new members out of 11. So that means I have some real freshman green people that don't really know yet how the legislative process works. And so it's my job to bring them up to speed. So that's what we've been doing the last week and most of this week as well. We'll be bringing in the departments and agencies that we have oversight over and letting the committee hear what they do, ask questions, get familiar with all the acronyms that we have. And then from there, we'll start introducing legislation, start working on some bills once we start getting those in. I had a conversation a few days ago with Owen Foster, who is the chair of the Green Mountain Care Board. Had a good conversation with him, and as well as our minority leader, Patty McCoy. We had about a 45-minute meeting with him, and I think it was very productive. I brought up the issue of our dialysis here in Newport, and you know, the real need to keep that dialysis here. And it sounds very positive to me that they are working on a solution, and that a solution will be coming, and we won't be losing that. Also suggested to him, he mentioned quite a few different things of the report that came out that really got everyone up in arms, especially up here, with possibly changing our hospital into a long-term care facility. He told me that there are a lot of things in the report that he believed in and that were done well, but he also said there are pieces in there that he doesn't agree with. And what happened, the suggestions of what to do with our hospital up here, he does not agree with that. We have a hospital here that has over 200 days worth of cash on hand, and one of the number one hospital that has that much cash on hand right now in the state of Vermont. So I think our hospital administration is doing a great job. It's not going to close. It's going to continue on. They are following some of the suggestions that were in that report, and I give Tom and the board and the administration a lot of kudos for doing that. Keeping our hospital strong is much needed here in this area if we're going to continue to grow. Our businesses need to know that there is a good healthcare facility here for their employees if we're going to attract more people here in Vermont, especially in the Northeast Kingdom. And also for Jay Peak, I think people need to know that are coming here to recreate that there's a hospital close by just in the event that there's something that happens. One of the areas that that my committee will be working on with our education committee is our schools. And namely for us, it's the career tech education. So there's a hearing with the administration Tuesday afternoon. So we'll be meeting with our education committee and the Senate Education Committee to hear what the administration's thoughts are from cradle to career for our education facilities. There's a lot going on there. I think everyone knows what happened to their property taxes this past year, and another 5% slated to go on top of that. It's unsustainable. We need to figure out different ways of not just different ways of taxing, but it's more of how do we reduce the amount that we're spending in schools, be more bring things more in line with the number of kids that we are educating and get better outcomes. So as we continue on working with our education committee, we're hoping that by the end of this year we'll see some results. I will caution everyone, it took a long time to get us into the place that we're in now. It's going to take us quite a while to get out of this position that we're in now. So with that, Dan, I'm going to let you take it on to somebody else.
Thank you. Our next representative is Representative Mark Higley, who's been serving since 2009. He's on the House Committee on Ways and Means, the Legislative Committee of Administrative Rules, and the Regional and County Governance Working Group. So please welcome Representative Mark Higley.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Again, new job for me, Ways and Means. So that's the tax committee. As you remember, last year they passed the yield bill with a couple of new taxes in it. Just to let you know, our chair set down the guidelines this year, and I'm hoping it follows through. But again, we're going to be working with the Senate and the administration on looking at some reform to the education tax system. We've already had a couple of joint meetings. The administration had put out an initial look at a foundation plan. Vermont is the only state. There's 49 other states that have some form of foundation plan. We are kind of an outlier for sure in regards to schools put together their budgets. The budgets go to the state, and the state finds the money to pay for it all. Really is what I think has gotten us in trouble. There's talk now about, the foundation plan is similar to so many other things that you work with as far as, there may be a tie to the consumer price index, whatever it is, for an increase every year. Of course, there's so much involved in it, whether it's school weighting proposals for students, whether it's English learners. There's so many other aspects of it, but hopefully we can get to some compromise and have a good solution in the end. Again, like Monique said, it's gonna take a while, I believe. I think a couple of things that I'd like to talk about is there's so much we can do down there that we don't do when it comes to affordability. They talk about housing. They talk about school funding and so on, but there are concrete things that we can do that have been proposed that don't happen. I'll give you one example. So the new residential building energy standards and commercial building energy standards were due to go into effect last December, actually the previous December. I came before the committee with a 2-year suspension on those going forward. We took testimony in ALCAR, that's the Committee on Administrative Rules, that looks at all the rules. Testimony from contractors and home builders throughout said that a 1,800 square foot home with these new rules would add about $28,000 per home. I went to the committee, like I said, with a suspension on these rules for 2 years. They said we couldn't possibly slow down in our climate change initiatives, and what didn't happen. In ALCAR, though, we took up those rules, and again, there was enough people there that we asked the agency to suspend rules until July, and they did. And I've recently gotten a call from a developer down in Stowe saying, geez, Mark, I'm looking to build some affordable rental properties, and there's a provision in there now where I have to have all the underground infrastructure in for EVs on a certain percentage of these places. That's astronomical cost for me. What can I do? And I have to throw up my hands and say there isn't anything we can do right now. Again, there's so much of this down there that, if you ask me, has to be stepped back before we can go forward. In other words, repeal. I've got another couple of bills in there that I'm sure they won't go anywhere, but again, I've put them in. People are asking for them. One is the total repeal of the Global Warming Solutions Act. And again, to fall back on our comprehensive energy plan. It's been out there for a long time. It was just updated in 2022. It has goals. If we don't get rid of these goals, folks, these mandates are what people can sue over. Legislative Counsel told me that if you have goals, that's a totally different game when it comes to lawsuits. If you have mandates, there's more ability to sue and win. And if we don't get rid of the Climate Council, they're going to come right back time and time again. We talked about the Clean Heat Standard, Affordable Heat Act, whatever you want to call it, possibly not going through. Well, guess what? The Climate Council has to come back with something else to meet those benchmarks of carbon reduction. And they've already talked about, again, another climate initiative, which would be basically a fuel tax on all fuels across the board, something simpler than what the Clean Heat Standard was. I've also put in a repeal of California, following California's clean car standards. Again, I've talked to the truck and bus industry, other fleet owners, and so on, that this is unrealistic expectations for these folks. I mean, I just bought a new truck here for my business, talking with the dealership, and in 2026, some of these clean car standards have to start coming into effect. They have to have a certain percentage of these electric vehicles on their lots by 2026. And then the funny part of it is, it was even mentioned last year in the Senate committee to the chair that didn't even realize that. And then the chair made a comment like, well, they don't have to be sold though, do they? I mean, what kind of, initiative is that? Another thing that's I've put in is talking with the loggers groups, forest products industry. This 30 by 30 and 50 by 50 that, again, it's an initiative in Vermont now where we're going to conserve all this land. And these groups are scared to death of what that means as far as tying up land that they aren't going to be able to use. We're putting in a proposal to include current use land that's in current use. It may not be protected in perpetuity forever, but it's conserved. And we want to include that number in that, that calculation. So much going on. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next representative is Woody Page. He's been serving since 2019, and he's on the House Committee on Health Care.
So last term I was on appropriations, and it's a very... Okay. So last term I was on appropriations, and appropriations is a very good committee to be on, just as Ways and Means. Appropriations would appropriate funds for various organizations and agencies, and then Ways and Means, Mark's committee, would find ways to find that money through taxation and other ways. I decided I didn't want to be on appropriations. What I wanted to be on was health care, because Newport is my home, it's my district, and I thought my service would be better used for health care. So that's why I asked and why I received the Health Care Committee, which I'm on. Before we move on to health care issues, I will just say that last week the budget was reviewed, the budget adjustment to find how much more money we'll need to get through this fiscal year, and it comes to $85 million in additional spending that'll be taken from the general fund. Those funds are going to be spent on employees, state employees' health care. Also, there's a deficit in our state liquor fund, I saw on the news this morning, and in appropriations last week, where people are winning a great deal of money in lottery and gambling in Vermont, and the state is not receiving those monies. Eventually they will through taxation of those funds as they are reported. But other things for the $85 million to get us through is the Vermont Veterans Home. They're still dealing with traveling nurses as well as Medicaid, and there's a lot more as well. One thing regarding the Health Care Committee, this next Tuesday all of us legislators are meeting with Owen Foster, just like Mike did. Well, actually, it's going to be tomorrow around 1 o'clock, and we'll get a briefing from Owen, and we'll also bring up our concerns regarding our healthcare system here in Newport and beyond. I have a confession to make. We haven't really accomplished much in the last couple of weeks. I probably shouldn't say that, but it's true. The first week was spent with a lot of pomp and circumstances, with the swearing in of various legislators, as well as the executive cabinet. And this past week, my healthcare committee Thank you very much. Okay. I thought I was getting the hook, but anyhow, in our healthcare this past week, we've basically done some training for the new folks on our healthcare system, healthcare provider advocates, Medicaid 101, legislative council introductions, as well as health insurance. Some of the bills that are coming to the healthcare that are on the wall right now, for those of you that aren't familiar, as bills are presented, they're assigned to various committees. And there's a board on the wall for incoming bills. And these can be taken up by the chair, and the committee will vote on those bills, whether to bring them out onto the floor and perhaps put them into effect. But here are some of the bills that the Healthcare Committee is looking at. H12, it proposes a study committee to study benefit barriers to blenderized tube feeding. H29, purpose is to replace references in Vermont statutes annotated to the Vermont Psychiatric Survivors, and they want to change that to Mad Freedom Incorporated. Why, I don't know, but anyhow. H31, it proposes health insurance claims where you can edit standards where they do not apply when healthcare services are delivered outside of Vermont, unless agreed by the health insurer. H35 proposes to unmerge the individual and small group health insurance markets and repeal outdated language regarding the Vermont Health Benefit Exchange. And that may be something dealing with you, Dave, with your business. And finally, H40 proposes to establish a licensing structure for freestanding birth centers and to exempt birth centers from the Certificate of Need review. One other thing I should mention, just received a notice that the treasurer tomorrow at 9 o'clock is having a presentation where he's looking to take $1 million of state funds and use those funds to eliminate up to $100 million in medical debt for Vermonters. That may or may not be a good thing. Haven't really heard or seen too much about it other than the notice that I received yesterday. I've got a lot more to say, but I'll...
Thank you, Representative Page. Our next representative is Larry Laber. He's been serving since 2022. He's the Vice Chair in the House Committee on Environment, Fish, and Wildlife. So, thank you.
Good morning. Good to see you all here. Thank you for standing up. I've been appointed as vice chair. Now, that's a dubious That's a dubious accolade, if you will. And nevertheless, it's in the environment, and we have not taken up any bills, but we've been getting a hell of an education, mostly on clean water standards, forestry, conservation, and as Mark stated, there are bills out there that are going to be coming, and I hope they get passed, to conserve land use. When you put something in current use or land use, depending upon the definition you want to use, foresters are hired, they come in, they view your land, they do an inventory, and they work on conservation to keep the ditches clean, to keep runoff away from your watershed so that you're not polluting or adding to silt to a body of water. And a perfect example of that would be Echo and Seymour, two of the pristine lakes in my district that are going for A1 classification from a B2. The other things that I'm also on Fish and Wildlife. Nothing has come forward. There have been people in the card room, animal preservationists, if you will, that are very vocal about protecting, in this case, their pets. And unfortunately, I can't agree with their methodology. Historically, the kingdom has always been I would call it a wildlife preserve in itself. We have the ability to sustain our wildlife. I don't care whether it's deer, moose, whatever. The Fish and Wildlife Department has done a wonderful job, and they're going to do their best to preserve it for fat-tired bikes, to use our lands for trails, and that's fine, but learn to share. And they're having a problem with that. They just want to have the state own all the land. I don't go along with that. Clean heat standard. We did get the water quality people to come in from ANR, and it's nice to have 56 Rs in the House now, because we can sustain a veto, and I think that's going to move the legislature. People showed us November 5th that they were speaking not only with their wallets, but they were speaking with their pen. And I'm thinking that maybe we can just say goodbye to the clean heat standard. I know it goes anywhere from 58 cents as a startup to $4 over the course of 10 years. That's nuts. People up here can't afford that. So I'd like to see that one go away. Well, it's clean heat standard also involves wood products and biodiversity. And until they just don't get it down there, and it's okay for them to jump on a plane and go to Fort Lauderdale for spring break, and they'll burn as much carbon in the atmosphere from that one flight as Vermont does for half a year. Does that make sense? Doesn't to me. One should remember that the global water standards and the global standards that were developed were actually part of the Paris Accord. And lockstep behind that was California. We're not California. We're Vermont. So let's treat it as Vermont and just kick that right out. Repeal it. Start over. I'd like to say a little bit about healthcare. I only had 47 years experience while I was doing that. There is a bill that's in the Legislative Council right now to be put together with due care. I've asked for a moratorium for 2 years on the Green Mountain Care Board to not be able to implement the Oliver Wyman report as presented. First year, do a good restudy and use Vermont's figures that are current and not from 2019. And I see the hook coming, but this bill is a little lengthy, and I'm just hoping it doesn't get stuck on a wall, because I'm not in healthcare, and that's where it's going to be going. Thank you.
Our next representative, it's her first year. It's Leanne Harple. She's on the House Committee on Education and a member of the World Caucus.
Rural Caucus, not World Caucus. No, it's okay. I mean, the World Caucus sounds great, too. I'd love to do that. Hi, my name is Leanne Harple. It is my first year in the legislature. I have worked as a public educator here in the Northeast Kingdom for the last 12 years, and so it was great to be put on the House Education Committee, where we have a lot of work to do. Our first couple of weeks, as other people have said, have been much more about fact-finding and informational meetings, and they have about actually moving any decisions forward. But those have been really useful meetings. We met with the Secretary of Education, Zoe Saunders, as well as the Vermont Principals Association and the Vermont Superintendents Association, the National Education Association, and the Commission on the Future of Public Education. And they had a lot to help us learn about why we're in the place that we are right now, where our education is so unaffordable for so many Vermonters. We have $6 billion in repairs and maintenance to our local infrastructures that they calculated over the next 20 years. And including that is 228 million in immediate needs for some of that. Some of the points that the superintendents and the Vermont Principals Association made were about the PCB testing and not having funding for that, so no more unfunded mandates to do this, because that's part of the problem. Another is declining enrollment, so that is making the cost per pupil really soar. We have the lowest student to teacher and student to staff ratio in the entire country, while we have a loss of teachers and staff, partly due to burnout because of rising mental health needs of our students. So recruitment and retention is another really big area. How we're going to solve these problems is something that all of these different groups kind of have different ideas about. The strategies of the NEA are different than the strategies of the Vermont School Boards Association. You know, as a parent of elementary school children and a teacher and a taxpayer, I can see all of these different angles, and we have a really hard job ahead of us to come up with a system where we can reform our education finances while maintaining local control, but also promising to sort of balance the needs that every Vermont student is getting right now. And so that's a really tall order. I appreciate the people who came up before me and said that while we're working on this, you shouldn't expect everything to change by May. I'm sure all of you know that. But we are working really hard to do that. Consolidation and reorganization are definitely going to be on the table. I know that we all want to keep our local schools and our local communities, and hopefully we'll find a way to do that. I'm really impressed with some of the planning that OXU is doing with their sister school plans, so that each town can have some schools, but sort of be consolidating the resources. And I hope that we can think about ways that as we go through this, we're inviting in the voices of our local communities to talk about what works for those communities. This isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all solution, because for one, to consolidate all the schools in our rural areas into the same sizes that we would have in other places in the state would take a lot more consolidation, a lot more travel, which is a loss of learning time. And so we're going to have to look at what's best for each of those communities. I also wanted to some of the other sort of mental health education-related things that are coming down the pipeline are social media and cell phone bills that are going to be talked about this year. Again, there's a lot to unpack there with a lot of different groups kind of having different opinions on that. So it's a possibility that we will have a statewide ban on cell phone and social media use in schools. That's going to be a big issue that comes up this year. I also have been working on uneducational bills. I put in my first bill about wake boats. A lot of constituents in our area have reached out to me about not wanting wake boats on our smaller lakes. They broil up the soil, they disturb the loons, they create unsafe conditions for people in smaller watercrafts. So the bill that I worked on, which came out of a Caspian interest group, is to make it so that towns can actually have more local say in whether or not they ban wake boats on their lakes. That way the bigger lakes that would want them could perhaps have them, and the smaller lakes could ban them. I also co-signed a bill to eliminate taxing Social Security on the percentage that's not already has no tax. If you make more than $50,000, you're not taxed, but over that, a percentage is taxed. And I co-signed a bill that would make it so that you can't turn off utilities in times of extreme heat, which I think is 92 degrees and above, which made a lot of sense to me. So people could keep their water, keep their electricity if it was about to be turned off, or actually get it turned back on. I think if it comes down to a life or death matter at that extreme heat, that makes sense. So those are the things that I've been working on, and hopefully I'll serve you well this year.
Our next representative is Richard Nelson. He's on the House Committee on Agriculture and Forestry.
The way Woodman was campaigning, maybe I should just yield my time to him. I'm on the House Committee of Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry. In food resiliency, I learned last week that Vermont only captures 10% of our food dollars locally, local grown foods sold back to our community. We only capture 10%. There's huge opportunity there. We also deal with issues to agriculture. We have 2 bills on the wall right now, both minor. One due with housing standards for backyard chickens, which brings to an issue, no one knows where the backyard chickens are. And we have H5A1 AI out there, avian influenza out there. Perhaps we want to know where the backyard chickens are. They tried years ago to get them all registered. It was met with great resistance. Times are changing. The other one's got to do with product testing on animals. They want to ban product testing on animals. We already can't use dogs and our animals for perfume testing, so that won't probably gain traction. We have some bills coming, the clean water. EPA sued the state of Vermont over runoff from farms. I'll be working with Larry's committee on that. I expect that bill is going to come to us either jointly or it's going to go to environment and then pass through our committee, and hopefully more than just burping the Jake break when it comes through, so we can take a look at it. But by the sounds of it, agriculture will continue to control the non-point source pollution, and ANR will take jurisdiction over on the point source pollution. By the way, ANR has had the ability to write CAFO permits for 9 years. They've written 0. They hired 2 staff members because they had to have them to write CAFO permits. They've written 0. So don't believe everything you read in the paper. You got to get into the weeds. Trust your representatives. We're down there. We're in the weeds. If you go to a committee to testify before them, or you go to a committee to seek to give information about a cause, if you know someone in that committee, ask them what's pertinent. We had someone come before our committee the other day, brought up a bill that is not favorable to agriculture. And they brought it up in such a manner I wanted to take them out in the hall and whoop up on them. And they didn't need to bring it up. So reach out to us, and we'll give you a heads up on what you need to lean on or what maybe you just need to let slide under the carpet. EV trucks, Mark's going to bring that bill up. I hope to co-sponsor with him. Tomorrow, a truck would not make it from Barrie up here to make deliveries and get back to Barrie if it was EV. They don't have the range. The technology is not there yet. I don't know if it'll ever be there. Our Charlie boys have shops in New York. They've got the ability right now to sell 42 brand new semi-trucks. 42. They can't sell a one until they sell 4 EV trucks. Because they have to sell 1 EV truck, then they can sell 10 diesels. They got 42 trucks they can sell on the books, and they can't sell any of them, and they have no leads on an EV truck. But the state of New York saw the crisis coming, and they have allowed the municipalities in the state to buy all diesel trucks to maintain their roads. Why? Because EV trucks won't work. So this is a bill that needs to come up. It needs to be kicked back. It needs to be kicked back. Let industry get ready for it. Industry's working on it. Daimler has a hydrogen engine. They claim it'll be out in 5 more years. Education. I've been on the North Country High School and Junior High School school board for 14 years, so I'm paying attention to education. That box is going to get shook up and dumped on the table. The governor is going to meet with us, I believe, this week. Is it this week or next week, Mark or Mike, with his joint proposal, their proposal for education? Wednesday, so that's coming. They want to go to 5 school districts in the state. Jim Harrison brought a bill, which I co-sponsored on. It'll break us down to 16 school districts. 5 might be a little big. North Country Union High School School District's largest state's already 520 square miles. You kicking me out? Okay, sir. Anyway, reach out to me. I'm a source, and I want to be present and be a presence for y'all.
Thank you. And our last representative in the new class also is Ken Wells, and he is on the House Committee of Transportation. So welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out this morning. And I see how the pecking order is going to work for freshmen. I asked Dan if I could bat lead off. I'm last. Going into politics stuff after being on the other side of the aisle for 30 years has been interesting. It's almost like going to college or high school. You know, you want to hang with the cool kids. You want to make sure you can find people to work with. You want to get sent to the principal's office, and you're learning along the way. I ended up on the transportation group, which was my second choice. Delighted to be on that. My first was Ways and Means. I know rookies don't get what they ask for, but I got the number 2, so I was delighted with the way that worked out. And basically, it states that the Transportation Committee considers all matters relating to air surface transportation, the registration, regulation, licensing of transportation operations and users, the construction of thoroughfares, in part with the transportation sector, air pollution and climate change and other similar ones. And of course, we're involved with air and surface. On our 11-man committee, we have Matt Walker, Republican from Swanton. He is our chair. We have 5 Ds, 5 Rs, and a progressive. And so we have balance there. The biggest thing that struck me the first week or so down there after like some of my more experienced colleagues talked about the fact that they almost waste a week with pomp and circumstance, you know, swearing us in, stuff like that. And once we get to the meat of it, it's staggering how much money this particular group has, the Agency on Transportation. It's the 3rd biggest budget, I believe. Is that correct, Senator? $900 million. So what do they do with that over the course of the year? they're busy, a lot busier than I ever thought. Even this time of year, you know, you watch the plow trucks. They got 250 of them from Bennington to Newport out on our roads. They cleaned up 628 bridges last year, 15,117 road guards replaced. That's a lot of work. How about 17,000 plus acres mowed by the state every week or so? And they also have 150 plow pickups on the road all the time, 55 giant loaders. And the lanes they plowed, which they're doing now, there's probably 150 trucks out already. 1,529,000 miles out there. So these guys are cranking. And one of the things that they talk about out there, you know, is what they're going to do for paving. That's the primary thing. It's about $1 million for every mile they put. And there are a lot of projects coming through here. Those will be locked in when the governor announces his budget. But it looks like in this area, Derby Interstate will be finished. They're going to do a huge project from Barton to Hardwick. And I believe they're even going to attempt to go from Hardwick to East Montpelier, which is nice because most of us drive that route every day to Montpelier. So that's going to work out well. But looking forward to it. It's exciting. It's a noble cause. I want to thank Mike and the rest of the veterans here. They've been very helpful. And besides me, Richard Nelson even needs more help than I do. And so I'm glad to have them here. Leanne's fine. She's on her own. And I was happy the way they distributed where everybody should be. Leanne is a fine teacher. She's on education. Richard's a farmer, got the biggest farm in the county. He should be with that group. So I think it's going to go well. And looking forward to it. And thanks for coming out today.
Thank you. And now we open up the floor for questions. And I don't know if we'll have time for more than one, but we'll open up for.
I can give it up if somebody else has a.
You sponsored it. You first. Okay.
I mean, this is a big question. I've been thinking about this all weekend because really I have two main concerns. One is definitely the Heat Standard Act or whatever you want to call it. And then the other one is healthcare, because both of those equally will probably present a $35,000 to $40,000 line item on my budget next year. So I'm just really interested on how on earth can we stop the heat standard law and adding more cost to our fuel, because I'll never heat my plant with heat pumps. That'll never happen. And neither will any other manufacturer in Orleans County. And then on the flip side, I got to keep my employees healthy. I can't keep getting 20% increases on my health care. And I can't push my employees to Vermont's program because it's too damn expensive. So what are we going to do?
So Senator Ingalls, he's got the answer.
So 640,000 people cannot change climate. That's just the way it is. 640,000 people can't. We are already the cleanest state in the nation. We work hard to do that. I don't think that there's anybody out there that wants to pollute. But at the end of the day, 80% of what we have for heating sources to heat our homes are fossil fuels. That's the way it is. We didn't get to this place overnight. It took 150 years to do it. And if we want to work in that direction, then it should take more time than what it is. The world isn't dying. It isn't. We're all good. It's all the way that it is. But I get it. People want to make sure they're doing their part. The state of Vermont spends $700 million a year on climate change. $700 million a year. That's what they spend. And what that's done is taken all that middle money as far as out of the budget and just putting it into that. It's just unsustainable. If we want to have cheaper health insurance, if we want to have transit, if we want to help the seniors, if we want to help everything, if we want to build new schools, if we want to do all of this, we've got to say, okay, you can take the $350 million, here you go, Do with what you want. We'd like a plan, because of right now, we don't have a plan. We just spend the money. But we'd like to see a plan, but so be it. Here's $350 million every year. Do with what you want. And give us that other $350 million to pump back into the middle part of the state to help reduce the cost of health care. I don't know if we're going to actually reduce the cost of health care as far as in the health care in itself, but we certainly could do more to subsidize it. And I think that's the answer to it as of right now. That's the quick answer to it, because I think it's a national problem as far as what are we going to do about health care. But we're spending too much money on climate change. We get it. We know you want a clean planet. We're doing our part with that already. Give us back some of that money so that we can help Vermonters live, be sustainable, and not tax us out of existence. Thank you.
Senator Douglas. You're the youngest, you should be the farthest away.
How dare you? That's age discrimination. So what I'll say to that, on the clean heat standard specifically, they're talking about 58 cents a gallon. That's too much. It just will not work. In a lot of conversations down there, what I am hearing is that it is almost certainly not going to end up passing. It is either going to fail outright, or it will just sit on a shelf and it'll get dusty, and that's where it'll stay. So I'd like to tell you that you don't have to worry about that, but I can't see the future. I will certainly oppose it, and I believe most of the reps, maybe all the reps in the room, will also oppose that. So when it comes to the healthcare costs, one thing that we've talked about a little bit on my committee, just briefly talking with some of the presenters that have come in and of the various stakeholders, is insurance plans. Right now, there are a lot fewer insurance plans available in Vermont compared to other states. So, and I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but New Hampshire has like 4 or 5 times the number of plans that we do. And funnily enough, their cost for those plans, at least on the bronze level, is how they put it, is a lot lower. So the diversification of insurance plans, when you have more supply and the demand stays equal, then costs should go down. That is one possibility that we're looking at. And while I don't like the idea of spending more money and subsidizing, Senator Ingalls has a great point in that a lot of the healthcare costs that we're seeing are federal issues. It's being passed down from the nation, from pharmaceutical companies, from larger insurance companies, and unfortunately those are just costs that we're not able to address. What we can do is we can continue to be advocates for our local communities to our federal delegation. Sending letters hopefully will help, but I can't tell you the future on that. Hopefully that answered it to some degree, and I know that all of us here are definitely doing as much as we can on that. It's a very, very tangled mess, I'll tell you that, being on the healthcare committee, and we still have a lot of work to do this year, and I'm hoping that we can get through it without spending too much more money. So, yeah.
Representative Marcotte.
Well, I think, as far as the clean heat standards go, I think what both senators have said, and I think the reality is that there are more Republicans because you all sent more Republicans down. When I went down 20 years ago, we were 60. Last year, we were 37. This year, we're 56. So we're almost back to where it was when I started. With that being said, we have enough both in the House and the Senate to sustain the governor's veto. Should the majority still continue to push the clean heat standard and put it into effect, because we have to vote on that again, I'm probably 99.9% sure the governor's going to veto it and that we will be able to sustain that veto. So I think as far as that piece goes, I think that's pretty much off the table. Another piece of that, though, is the ability for someone in the public to sue the state because we're not meeting the goals of the clean heat standard. I think that's going to cost us a lot of money. So I think we need to also be looking at that as well. When it comes to health care and the high cost of insurance, we don't have very many insurers in the state. Blue Cross Blue Shield is teetering, and I'm literally teetering. That's why you saw a 22% increase in their rates, and I think you're going to see another one next year. Otherwise, we lose that insurer, and we can't afford to lose that insurer. What I would say is that anytime there's anything that comes out from the Green Mountain Care Board, listen carefully, listen carefully. I think there's other factors that are playing in this. It's that the Green Mountain Care Board is trying to do, trying to make some changes. So listen to what they're saying as well. But we also have to realize we're the second oldest state in the country. Maine is number 1, we're number 2. That means that we have people my age are the ones that use health care the most. We don't have the young people who are on the insurance plans that aren't using it. That balance is way out of whack, and it's costing us, all businesses, it's costing us all a lot of money. So it's just not, you know, we need to bring more people in here. Housing falls into that. We have a housing problem. We don't have enough houses to bring people in. So we're right in the middle of a perfect storm that we're trying to navigate our way out of, and it's going to take some time.
Representative Higley.
Well, thank you. And as I said, you know, the Climate Council is looking at whether the Clean Heat Standard or Affordable Heat Act, whichever one you want to call it, fails. They've got to have something lined up right behind it. And they're looking at the TCI, Transportation Climate Initiative, which they initially advocated for, but of course it fell apart when a number of other states fell through. But now they want to do it on their own. And that means an across-the-board tax on all fuels. And I don't know how that would affect your business as well, but I'm sure it will. Again, it's critical to me that we need to step back from this. As the senator said, the amount of money that we're spending, whether it includes federal money or not, is still an astronomical amount, hundreds of millions of dollars. And with the devastation that's happening because of climate change, we also need to put hundreds of millions of dollars into hardening our infrastructure and building things back. To me, we can't do both. You know, little old Vermont, I'm sorry, can't do both. And again, it comes down to what kind of effect are we going to have on the environment? We're just not going to do it. We're such a small state. They talk about we need to be bold, we need to be a leader and all that, but it's going to put so many of my constituency in hardship when it comes to that. And I just can't see it. And we need to, you know, I ran into Secretary of Agency and Natural Resources, Julie Moore, on the way into the State House, and I said, so how's your lawsuit going? Because we currently have a lawsuit filed by the Conservation Law Foundation. And she says they've asked the courts to, you know, suspend the suit for now. And I remember her talking back during the suit for the Clean Water Act on Lake Champlain and so on. I think it took years and years and hundreds of millions of dollars as well fighting that lawsuit. So, you know, she mentioned again that it could happen again. We could be at this for a lot of years. It'll slow down the process as to what we're trying to do, and it's going to cost us a lot of money. So there you go. There's another example.
Representative Page.
Well, the first thing is for the Clean Heat Initiative, it should be repealed, and I hope it is. The other issue is regarding health care. I think Larry's suggestion, the moratorium on costs, is another issue. There's also a program called One Care. It helps out the primary care providers. If they meet certain goals, they get certain amounts of money from the feds. And if they don't meet those goals, then they don't get those extra bonuses. That program is being changed now. It's called the AHEAD model. It was agreed to last, I think, Thursday. The Green Mountain Care Board has some reservations about it, but they did sign on it, as well as the governor and the Secretary of Human Services. I don't think it's going to change much, but what they are looking at is global budget agreements for the hospitals. And the concern with that is that the hospitals may limit access to various care within those facilities. It's unclear what's really going to happen, but as Mike said, the Green Mountain Care Board is the major regulator for our health care. It's charged with trying to keep those costs down with our health care. Thus far, it hasn't done a very good job. And again, the insurance companies, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, MVP, they're really hurting right now. And unfortunately, the only incentive or the only thing that they can do is raise the costs of their policies. And so something has got to be done. Green Mountain Care Board does recognize that, and hopefully they'll be able to do something about it in the future. Thank you.
Representative Labor.
Let's look at conservation. Does anybody in the room realize that 43% of the land mass in the Northeast Kingdom is already conserved? Why is there such an emphasis on conservation in the Northeast Kingdom? Well, it is the playground, and it is the biggest tourist attraction for the state because of its beauty and its pristine waters. How much of Chittenden County is conserved? Anybody want to venture a guess? You talk about development, only 7% of Chittenden County is conserved. Maybe we ought to look at that. Very poor balance there. When we look at health care, we don't have enough competition from insurance companies. In this case, more is better. But who gets sick by appointment? The Oliver Wyman report wanted to limit the North Country hospitals and some of the other three to partial day coverage in the emergency room. I don't get sick by appointment. I don't know how many of you do. And I don't know of anybody that plans on an accident at 2 o'clock in the morning. Where would health care be then? Not a good report. Thank you.
Representative Harpel.
I actually appreciate going near to last in this question because a lot of what I would say has already been said. I am here. Yes, it's true that I'm a Democrat and I'm one of 2 Democrats that made it through in the Northeast Kingdom, but I'm here as, sorry? You're token. Yeah, I'm the DEI hire. I am here as a member of a rural community, and I heard it loud and clear that this is something that our rural communities, that our whole state can't afford. And so I'm not going to go against the interests of the people of my own hometown and my own community to vote for these ideals. Like everybody else, I recognize that we do have a changing climate, and it is causing catastrophic problems. But I would also agree that I think that the solution to stopping all of that isn't necessarily to pass a clean heat standard. I'm going to vote for what is good for rural Vermonters, for all of Vermonters. And so I hope that people will also recognize that even though I'm like fine and I'm the Democrat in the room, I'm also just, you know, a member of the Northeast Kingdom. And so I will do that. As far as the healthcare goes, like the healthcare and like the clean heat standard, I'm just getting started. I'm going to want to hear a lot more testimony to feel like I can speak confidently about all the facts and figures, but I am here to hear that, and so I guess that's pretty much what I have to say about that. All right.
Representative Nelson.
The clean heat standard's dead in the water. And we'll be the wall that stands in front of it for all of y'all. the Oliver Wyman report got 2 things right. Just 2. Demographics and housing. When I went to that meeting over at across the lake, and they said demographics and housing, and they're exactly right. We're working on a bill to remove some of the barriers to affordable workforce housing, because we need affordable workforce housing. And when you talk to Mike Tangway or Cedar Bolton, and they tell you it's the fees. The fees add so much money to these houses. So we got a bill we're working on to remove the barriers for workforce housing, which hopefully will lower the age of our demographics, which will improve health care, and which will fill these barns back up with students. Because when you get a barn that's already 3/4 full, you're not making enough milk to pay the bills. We have a freshman class of 56 new legislators, or 50, somewhere in there. And on the House side, we've formed the class of 24, which Leanne's a part of. They met last week. I didn't make it. It was a great meeting full of new legislators with bipartisanship that were all elected to make this state more affordable regardless of party. So we're going to keep that group going, and we're going to work together to hopefully correct some of the ills of the past. Thank you.
And Representative Wells.
I went to that meeting the other day. Richard's right on that, and it was nice to see a moderate approach on both sides, because none of us can get anything done unless we work together. And so he did a great job there. He's a Republican from Addison, and we had half Dems and some progressives and Republicans, so that was positive. As far as that clean air thing, we're not California. There's 40 million people out there. I lived there in the 80s for 2 years. They get 80 times as many people as we do. Let's just have our own Vermont standard.
Well, this concludes the first legislative breakfast of the 2025 series. I'd like to thank again all the senators and representatives for their attendance today. I'd like to thank all the people for showing up, the members of the media, NEK-TV, the Eastside, and especially Built by Newport for sponsoring them. So thank you all again, and have a great time. The next meeting will be February 10th, not the 17th. So we've moved it up a week. Next time it'll be February 10th, and it'll be sponsored by Pasumsic Bank. So thank you all.